leadership is you look behind you and there are people that are following. But I think if there's nobody following, then you're just going out for a walk, essentially. So I think at the end of the day, you've got to really navigate and look in the mirror, be sober-minded, be reflective, and ask yourself, do I have the charisma? Do I have the woo? Do I have the leadership capacities where I look behind me and people are following?
This is the Untamed podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your untamed hosts, Mark Lucas and Joel Fritz.
Well, Mark, we've brought a special guest today, I see.
Maverick.
What's his name? Maverick?
Maverick.
That's right.
He is here.
Maverick,
Protecting
good dog.
us. He's looking for Goose.
Well, hey, we've got the fire. The weather is cold. It's December. We thought we'd have a little bit of fun outdoors, and we're going to talk about leadership because, I mean, you want to be a good leader. I want to be a good leader. We know that we're talking to men that have different leadership roles, whether it be in their business or whether it be at home. Yeah. And that one at home, I think we often underestimate the impact that we can have there and sometimes forget about it or put it to the side. I think that's a really important one. But wherever you're leading, we think it's important to have a conversation about leadership, and the outcome of it is really going to be, I think, a strengthening of our definition of leadership. And so why don't we just head down that road? What is leadership? You want to start?
Yeah, I can kick it off. I mean, I think for all of us, like you said, you mentioned being in the home, a leader, and I think our heart probably beats the strongest for ourselves to be great leaders in the home and to help navigate the way the Lord would lead us to help navigate men to be stronger leaders in the home. What is a good leader? What does it mean to lead well in the home? What does it mean to lead well in the marketplace? I think we've all had moments, like you mentioned when we kind of walked into this, that leadership is you look behind you and there are people that are following.
Yeah.
But I think if there's nobody following, then you're just going out for a walk, essentially. So I think at the end of the day, you've got to really navigate and look in the mirror, be sober-minded, be reflective, and ask yourself, do I have the charisma? Do I have the woo? Do I have the leadership capacities where I look behind me and people are following? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is you don't really see many or any people following you at this point, it might not be necessarily that you're not a good leader or a great leader. You might be leading in a season right now where you're just moving too fast. You might be really just blistering through a pace where you have the vision, you have the preferred future and the desired outcome that you want to achieve, but you're so fixated and so focused. I at times struggle with this, that you're just laser focused on where you're headed, and yet you're not communicating enough, often enough. You're not allowing for engagement and collaboration of conversation to be able to kind of course correct and connect in that journey of going to the destination that your vision and your leadership is taking the group. So you might just be moving too fast, not communicating well enough. The pace might be too fast for the group. You might not feel like you have enough connection. So I think there's a lot to unpack, even what I've said so far, but those are some of the initial things that even right now in my destination that I'm in right now, in the spot I'm in right now, it's leadership, but it's leadership in a different marketplace. It's leadership in a different sphere. And even navigating leadership for me in this place, in this season of my life. And also, I think you and I have talked a lot about this. I mean, I'm going to be 50 in March. You're going to be 49 in just a few weeks. Probably when this episode is out, you'll have already been 49.
Probably, yeah.
And at the end of the day, as I walk into this decade of 50s, and you just really are thinking quite a bit about it, 49, leadership looks different based on the decade as well that we're in, I think. I mean, there's different priorities. We talked a lot about the importance right now in the marketplace in really making sure we're not losing sight in leadership in our home and what being present with our kids looks like in the scope of positions that might pull us away on the weekend. Mm-hmm. And pull us away from the family on the weekend.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of different questions that I think in this fireside chat that we get to wrestle with today that are great questions to really ask. And I think one of the prayers that we had walking into this is maybe this is less of a kind of didactic script of we're going to prescribe these specific steps for you, but it's more of a process and a journey of just open dialogue and open conversation that the Lord might kind of bring up some thoughts, bring up some things that you had been thinking about, and those have been triggered in good ways for you now to really just kind of mull them over and pray them through and think about them. So
That's good. As you're talking, it just reminds me like we have to figure out what leadership is in the midst of all of this because there's so many different scenarios. Life is coming at us from different angles all the time. And so what is leadership? That's a really good question. And I think one of the fundamental things, first off, you said, leadership, actually John Maxwell said leadership is influence. And I really like that phrase, but it could take a lot of different forms. But in a more simplistic form, if you kind of envision a picture in your mind, if you're out and you're going somewhere and nobody's following, that's just called a walk, right? Yeah. And so that is kind of the essence of leadership, is that you're going somewhere and other people are following. Because in whatever environment we're talking about or you're thinking of in your mind, you have a role that requires leadership. First off, I think everybody has leadership in some area. And so there may be people listening and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm actually a leader the way that you guys are talking about a leader. But if you really think about it, you're going to have a leadership role somewhere. And maybe in one of the most important areas in life, and that's with your kids. The participation and the way that you participate as a leader in your family, where are we going really becomes a question. And I think that's a great way to define leadership, is this question of where are we going? Because if you don't answer the question where you're going, then nobody knows how to follow. And I guess recently, like, it's interesting because the older you get, when you're young, you like all these different nuances to things because you think of the future and you think, man, anything can happen and leadership will look like this in this area and this and in another area. And what kind of leadership should I do? What kind of leader can I be? I want to be a great leader. All this stuff is happening in your mind. But as you get older, you really appreciate simplicity. And I think young people appreciate it well, but ultimately the lessons lead you to, you need simplicity in order to make it actionable or act upon things. And so, simply speaking, if you're a leader, where are you going? It's almost like a metaphor where you would draw an X on a map and say, well, this is where we're headed. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a reason that you get to a place and there's a role that kind of emerges because of that. But if you're like, we're going to go on vacation as a family, right? There's usually a motivator. It's, does the family want to spend time together? Does the family want to get out of the cold, in the winter and head down to Florida into the warm? What's the motivator? There's a reason. And then you have a destination related to that reason. You draw an X on a map, and then you begin the process of leading people toward that destination. But in the midst of it, if you haven't communicated well, if you haven't done the things that you need to do, if people don't understand why, or they haven't bought into the vision of going to this particular place, then you start on the journey and you look around and nobody's with you. And I think that happens in my family more than any other place, that I could think of. It's like you go, hey guys, we're headed in this direction. But everybody in the family goes, no, I don't want to go in that direction. I want to go in this direction, this direction. I want to go anywhere but where you're saying to go, Dad. And so that becomes a challenge, but in its essence, that is leadership. Can you define where you're headed and will people go on the journey with you?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, in my summation of leadership, and I think for most people, articulating and deciding where you're headed and the destination of where you want to go, I think that's the easy part. I think anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. Everybody understands their desired future and they can dream of that preferred future. So they can see the destination on the map of where they want to go, where they want their family to go, where they want to go. That part is leadership, but that part I think is the easy part of leadership. The part that's so challenging, or for me, most of the time is so challenging, is designing a path that's the daily, the weekly, the monthly path that still invigorates and excites the group to continue on the path of the desired future and the destination that we're going. Because it sounds great and exciting initially, and maybe even in the first few steps of that journey. But the course corrections, the encouragement, the modifications, the communication, the exhortations, all of those things along the way that we as leaders need to really be implementing and infusing into that process, that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where it's really, really challenging is I can sit down even in my own home and we can talk to my daughter about the desired outcome for you, even at this point, maybe not a year and a half ago, was college and university outside of high school. And now that's crystal clear for you. And that's a desire that you have as well, not just your parents having that desire. And here's even a list of the schools that you want to go to. So that where we're headed, leadership, was pretty easy for us to arrive at. But now for her, constantly the steps that she has to take daily and weekly and monthly to be able to get to that place, that's where the grit and the grind and the work and the encouragement and identifying her soft skills, identifying what she's good at, modifying and encouraging her in the right way, celebrating the steps that she's taken towards that destination. What gets celebrated gets repeated. So making sure that in the organization, in your home, you're celebrating even one or two steps that you've taken, especially in hard seasons, but really in all seasons. Let's celebrate some steps that we've taken forward because, again, we're going to have January here before we know it. The end of the time, everybody has, for the most part, a New Year's resolution. And a lot of those, probably 80% of them, now that I'm in the gym space at Lifetime Fitness, 80% of those are goals and desires to lose weight, to get more physically fit. In January, that's amazing. But again, those all fall apart in February, as early as February. So it's these steps that we take forward and how do we continually move forward towards that destination. That's the real part of leadership that takes a lot of work, but it's worth it. And that's where I think people will still follow behind us if we're still doing a great job. Every single time we move forward individually, corporately, as an organization, as a family, and we really have kind of a huddle up moment with our family, with our team, and say, okay, where are we to find reality? Have we taken steps forward in this season of our life, in this season of our month, whatever it is? How are we off track? How do we really kind of celebrate some steps we've taken forward? And then how do we reassess, recalibrate, and really kind of move forward into where we have all decided that we want to go? So it's so good because the journey is the difficult part. Simultaneously, we've probably all heard somebody say this phrase, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right? That may be a really good metaphor for life. But if we're not moving forward and measuring each step that we take, like you're suggesting, then we feel stagnant, right? We feel like we're never going to get to the destination. I love weight loss or, getting into physical shape there's so many different things that you can motivate yourself with. Obviously, I love cycling. So I really do ride my bicycle different and I invest a different amount of time, energy, and commitment if I have a ride coming up. And so it's actually a good practice for me. We had an episode back in July, I think, where we were talking about that, just set a goal, pick a run, do something. I know one of the Untamed Few guys, he decided that he was going to do a bicycle ride with his daughter. And then he was gearing up for that. And they had a great time. That happened in November. And that was a pretty cool story. But it's that sort of thing where we kind of pick a short-term goal so that we can measure that we've made some forward motion. So the ultimate goal, it's really hard, I think, when you're thinking, I need to lose weight, because you have to attach yourself to a really strong why in order to motivate yourself. Now, sometimes a why is strong enough because it's pain-oriented, right? Like, if you don't do this, then your body is going to give out on you, or you already have an illness or something like that. And so you have to recover and you have to do it immediately.
But when you're kind of like, I'd like to look a little bit better, or I'd like to use a little bit more weight, where are you going to find the motivation for the journey, right? When it gets tough, exactly like you're talking about. And I think that's where, especially if you have the strong why, we continue to remind ourselves the destination that we're headed to. We measure incrementally along the journey. Then, I mean, it's as easy as like using that metaphor and saying, hey, we're headed to Florida and it's going to take us, let's forget about a plane right now, but it's going to take us a day and a half to get there. But on the way, we're going to try and hit this spot and this spot and this spot, and then we're there, right? And so when you have a short amount of time, you can recognize, oh, we actually made this goal, the first goal, the milepost, if you would. So we hit this milepost, now we hit the next milepost, and now we're at our destination and we're on the beach, right? And everybody's happy. And that's the big goal. In life, those things are just so much longer, right? And so we have to figure out how are we going to measure along the way. And so I love what you're saying with that, is that if we're not celebrating the wins along the way, then the destination is just too far off. But that reminder of where we're headed, why it's important, and then measuring incrementally along the way, I think really helps us get there and maintain the people following with us. Because it's critical, getting everybody to move in the same direction and toward something.
Yeah, and I think along the way, and I've fallen prey into this, and I've been guilty of this before in my leadership style, I become so fixated on where we're headed that I literally, to some degree, lose connection and lose engagement with the people that are in the journey with me.
Yeah.
And I just have a myopic viewpoint of just having blinders on and only seeing where we're headed. And I think one of the things that I need to do a better job at, and also creating a culture of people around me, because I'm modeling this, is that when we're faithful together to where we're headed in the destination, we all understand the why, we all believe in where we're headed, and we're excited about where we're going. When we're available to evaluate, available to connect, available to engage in the struggles, engage in the tensions, engage in the frictions, engage in the pain points of what's going on in the journey. And then when we have moments that we're also teachable, that FAT acronym, I think I've just really got to kind of walk through being fat, modeling being fat, but also the people around me. If I model it, and I believe the importance of every one of those letters, that A part is really, really important to me, because I've got to be available to huddle up in a corporate setting of a boardroom, or a one-on-one setting, or around the kitchen table on a Sunday night dinner, and really model authenticity, model openness, but also model a conversation and a heart that says, what's going on? How are we doing in this? Because I think even organizationally within the corporate space, we get so fixated in our energy and our time and our efforts to just think about what are the different metrics, what are the different platforms that we're using, what are the different softwares and solutions that we have in place to get us to the desired outcome of where we're headed at the X in the map of Florida, like you said. And yet that's great. We need that software, we need those tools, we need those specific tactics to be able to help us get there. But along the way, if we're not really hearing the heart and creating an environment to hear the heart of the people that are struggling doing the day-to-day, struggling to do the day-to-day task and the day-to-day functions that we need them to do and want them to do for us all to arrive and celebrate the destination that we're arriving together, then there's just going to be a disconnect. There's going to be stagnation. There's going to be lukewarmness in this journey of being on fire for the mission and where we're going. So I think that's been really the heart for me, is I need to sit down with my daughter. I need to sit down with my son right now. And I sat down with my son last Sunday, and I thought it connected and clicked. And son, if you hear this conversation, I love you. But I took him to Waffle House, and it was just he and I just said, okay, we've talked a lot about your grades. We talked a lot about finishing well this semester. What does it look like for you right now in the last couple of weeks to finish well? And you heard a little bit of my dialogue today as he went out to school. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like we've got to have those moments of kind of taking off our mask, being open, being authentic, being raw, being real, and just saying, how are we doing? We've talked at maybe nausea about where we're headed. But how are we doing right now? And what are the big roadblocks, and what are the things that are really hard right now in this journey? And if we don't create a safe space to do that, it's going to be really challenging for us all to be united and excited about the vision of where we're all headed.
Yeah. And you're making me think about all these different scenarios in my own family's life when you talk about that. While also in work scenario and career scenarios, I mean, you're speaking about something very important. That's connection, human connection. Understanding where a person that is following is at in their journey, understanding where you're at in the journey and how that relates to the person who is following in that situation. And I just can't over communicate the importance of what you're saying in connection. I think that doesn't always come naturally to us. Everybody's made a little bit differently, but there are leaders who are vision heavy. Leaders always have to have some sort of vision so that they are able to communicate what the destination is, because I honestly think that is a weakness in many, if not most leaders, right? This is where we're going and recommunicating that. Like that seems to be a struggle for a lot of people, but there are those that get that right. And then they're heavy on that. And then maybe they run out ahead, but they didn't make the connection with everybody. So they have to do stronger human connection, right? Where is it? Why are you falling behind? What's your experience that's happening at this current time? What are your motivators, and understanding how those motivators relate to the destination that you're headed to as a family or in a business. All of that stuff becomes really important. And then there's the other people that are really strong human connectors, right? And they love being around people, but they may not be as good or more hesitant because they don't want people to dislike them or whatever it is, to set the vision and put the stake in the ground and mark the X on the map and say, this is where we're going. And I love what you're talking about. But at the same time, that is holding you back a little bit. Even if we think about our own kids in school, right? I was talking with Q, our producer, on the way out here to Atlanta, and we were talking about school. And sometimes I just get really frustrated, in my own experience with school, but especially my kids' experiences with school. And I go, Mark, what is the point of going to high school? Now listen, I get it. You're going to learn math. You're going to learn, reading, writing, all these skills. You're going to develop all of that. But in the end, you get done with high school. And here's what's just such a bummer. It was just so disappointing. Man, look at that, Ash. She caught you right on the nose. This is what's so disappointing about high school is you get done with high school and you're still not employable. There's you don't come out. They didn't actually train you for anything. So it's this weird pattern that we hold people in. It's like they go into high school and we do sports, and maybe you get trained to do something in sports. It's all the stuff on the periphery of high school that actually trains you for life. Whereas in high school, they're just teaching you what are supposed to be the building blocks. But I just think that in that scenario, that's one of the big reasons that it makes it so difficult for a child to sit down and want to study math, because it's not heading anywhere except for a diploma. And who cares about a high school diploma, like if you're actually sitting down thinking about a kid? And again, people are motivated by different things. So some kids are highly motivated. They're like, I got to get a great grade on the ACT. So they study hard and they want to get good grades because they want to get into college. But I still think real motivators in life are, I want to do this with my life. I want to experience this thing, get to do this thing. Therefore, it makes the math worth it, right? It makes the reading worth it. It makes the learning worth it because I know where I'm headed. And that's something that always lets me down about high school. So that's kind of in the kid world. And I could get into business stuff, but I don't know. What do you think about that too? Like, I just think when we don't have something strong, I see it with my kids all the time. Like you're talking about Carson, it's just not enough of a motivator to get a good grade in a class for many people. Some it is. That's a motivating thing. But if we have a bigger destination that's more clear, then the little things along the way that are painful become worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some of the soft skills in people coming out of high school, and yet they're not really able to go get any type of employment opportunity that they are desiring. Even the same scenario is true in a lot of cases out of college. So at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, even this conversation on leadership, I think great leaders, great parents can identify some of the soft skills, identify some of the areas of growth that are happening even outside of the function and the role of that class, or the function and the role of the task of learning this material, reciting it, taking a test, and then moving on to the next section. I think at the end of the day, we've got to be able to come alongside our kids, people at work, and say, okay, what are your real soft skills that are being developed here? Are you a naturally good communicator? Do you have the ability to seek administration and really thrive in administration? Are you good at conflict resolution?
Mm-hmm.
Are you good at being a team player and connecting the group together? I mean, these are the things that even within the academic institute of high school and college, we've got to be seeing within our organization, the people that we're leading in the marketplace, and also within our homes. It's not just Spanish, which is the conversation with my boy today. It's helping him see, hey, you're really good at cohesively keeping the peace and connecting relationally people in your class, in your friend group, on your hockey team. You're really good at that. And here's, to some degree, how this class and this group setting at school, with the academics obviously infused in that, you're really growing in that through that as well. So don't just see Espanol, but see the bigger picture of what's being developed in this process. So, yeah, I mean, I know we're about to wrap up, but I mean, just there's a lot of Socratic type conversations we're having here, a lot of just reflective type questions that we're having here. I don't know if we're necessarily landing the plane and giving them 2 steps or 1 step to take out of this, but I just really hope and pray, and that was our prayer coming into it, in this fireside chat, it solicits thought. It solicits an opportunity for you to be reflective, self-reflective, which might be arguably the most important skill in your life that is the most anemic for most people in the West.
Mm-hmm.
People do not know, myself included most days, how to slow down and be still enough to hear your thoughts, to hear what's going on inside of you, to ask yourself some of these leadership questions. So if we give you that in the car right now, listening to this, or listening to this on video content, or however you're consuming this, if the Lord gives you a thought right now and a moment of reflection right now, we are so elated and so encouraged by that.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah. And you have I think that's a great challenge, by the way. The challenge to take a moment and reflect. And in that reflection, there are things that we've talked about that you can reflect upon. I mean, I think most of us need to, I don't know how frequently, but weekly, monthly, ask the question, where am I headed in this particular area? And have I communicated that well? And if you have done those things well, then you can ask the other question, well, where are the people at that are following, right? Where are my kids at? Where are my employees at? Where are my colleagues going? Am I following well in the roles where I need to follow other people? Because we're not always just leaders. We're also practicing to be good followers. And by understanding followership, Jesus Christ first, and then the leaders that are in our lives, we can understand how to be better leaders in the area that we have responsibility. So, I mean, in those moments of thinking, we can ask those questions, am I doing a good job saying this is the destination? And then am I communicating that well? And am I understanding where the people that matter to me are at in the journey?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Untamed. Yeah.
Hope you guys, digest that, do something with it. And maybe go make yourself a fire in the backyard and have the conversation.
Maybe with your family even. Yeah, I love it.
All right.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.